my real and lies, range guys, say FBI. I know the Father gods, I swear they had the nerve, think I was high. This shit ain't overnight, that's a whole lot of flips. This shit ain't overnight, took a whole lot of trips. This shit ain't overnight, gotta learn and get your grip. This shit ain't come overnight, it just look like this. This shit ain't overnight, that's a whole lot of flips. This shit ain't overnight, took a whole lot of trips. This shit ain't overnight, gotta learn and get your grip. This shit ain't come overnight, it just look like this. This shit ain't overnight, been through so much shit in my life. The game colder than ice, that bass tryna cut you like a knife. Always had my own little finger, and you gon' feed me with a slice. We was grinding all night just to make them turnovers precise. I had to sacrifice, I had to cut some ties, minimize. I had to realize, I use my real eyes, see through the lie. Club going live, range guys, say FBI. I know the Father gods, I swear they had the nerve, think I was high. This shit ain't overnight, that's a whole lot of flips. This shit ain't overnight, took a whole lot of trips. This shit ain't overnight, gotta learn and get your grip. This shit ain't come overnight, it just look like this. I'm fucking with your vibe, no emotional shit. She the type send X-rated flicks when she wants some dick. Like to go eating vibe where they got hookah and sip. Pull up in fast shit, park it back and like she big on me them. She got her own racks, she ain't looking for them. Been through a lot of shit, make it hard for that girl to submit. Now when she love, she don't put her heart up in it. Make her run from every nigga in her face, bring commit. She went and got her ass done, it boost her confidence. Take her on a vacation, fill her up with dick. Got her own money cause she a boss bitch. She don't need a nigga for she bust some real dick. She a rich bitch, she fly nigga, I see dick. Really in her bag with cost more than your kicks. She stay low key, you ain't gon' see her in the mix. Might catch her at the game in the jersey wearing kicks. Strong women make niggas intimidated. She very selective, she ain't running jumping dick. Ever tryna shoot your shot, you best be on your shit. Get irritated quick, add you to the block list. She overqualified, she a vibe, she know it. It's a hot This shit ain't overnight, that's a whole lot of flips. This shit ain't overnight, took a whole lot of trips. This shit ain't overnight, gotta learn and get your grip. This shit ain't come overnight, it just look like this. This shit ain't overnight, been through so much shit in my life. The game colder than ice, that blade tryna cut you like a knife. I always had my own little thing, letting the bird feed me with a slice. We was grinding all night just to make them turnovers precise. I had to sacrifice, I had to cut some ties, minimize. I had to realize, I use my real eyes, see through the lie. Club going live, range guys, say FBI. I know the father guys, I swear they had the nerve, think I was high. This shit ain't overnight, that's a whole lot of flips. This shit ain't overnight, took a whole lot of trips. This shit ain't overnight, gotta learn and get your grip. This shit ain't come overnight, it just look like this.
About Meek Mill that there is to find. The craziest thing happened yesterday as Meek Mill was hearing some buzz about him being associated with P. Diddy lawsuit, and he decided to come out and address the issue. And he effed up real bad. He should have stayed silent instead of shitting the bed like that with that tweet. Now the fans are digging up everything about Meek Mill that there is to find. Now, what did he say on that tweet?
I want to take a moment of silence for all Meek Mill fans and all Philadelphia niggas around the globe right now. Because they got him. And by they, I mean Diddy. Diddy got Meek Mill, and it's all coming out in a lawsuit.
Bro, I remember a time when Meek Mill tweeted the D is good as hell. And we were just all like, okay, well, I don't know. The D can mean a lot of things, right?
Yo, yeah, he could have been talking in other, you know what I'm saying? You never know, you know what I'm saying? Nigga could be saying that shit because these bitches be going crazy at the same time. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? We don't know.
I swear to God, this man Meek Mill be blowing me, bro. All you had to say is, I did not fiddle with Diddy. That's all you had to say. Now you over here saying the lawsuit is...
You really ain't have to say shit. You're talking too much. You really saying too much.
AI generated is fake, bro. The lawsuit is real, gang. You being accused...
You know, if Puffy taking his money or his manhood.
And what's so crazy, he said this shit way before this shit came out. Remember when they were saying Young Chop was going crazy? He said that shit a long time ago.
Yeah, I've been to Puff House too. Motherfuckers used to run upstairs. Let me drop the phone on that one.
Hey,
right hand up to God.
They gonna say he crazy.
50 ain't telling no lie out this motherfucker. You hear me?
Hey, listen. All I'm saying is, you can talk about whoever the fuck you want. You ain't talking about Meek Mills and the niggas on here. They ain't no scary niggas, man.
I ain't saying.
Did you know that 64% of people striving to reach their higher paying dream job fail not because they aren't using other alternatives, but because they're making...
Was Puffy really a fun boy?
Listen, I never seen him in the act with another man alone. Now, he's that type of dude, he'll take his girl, his baby mama with you and your girlfriend and your mans in them, and they'll go out and they do all kind of freaky shit with each other together. You know what I'm saying? The only fun boy shit that I ever seen him do, we was in one of those exotic shops. Yo, I'm gonna turn this shit out because this shit was funny. We was in Atlanta. We go to those exotic shops where you get all kind of like they buy oils, dildos, spooky. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? All kind of shit. So they would just give him a brown paper bag, and they wouldn't even. He'd never put his shit out on the counter when we get ready to take it out. He would always just give a man a wad of money. So they just thought it was cool. So they'll give him a brown bag. He'll go through there. So one day I was walking down the aisle with him, and so then he just stopped and he just started picking this shit up off the aisle. And he was getting, he went up there like several times just getting shit down. And so then I pinned in on what he was, where he was getting it from, and because I was just staying a couple of feet behind him. So when I went by, I looked up. I said, "Yo," and I seen the shit up there and it said butt plugs. And I said, "Yo, my man, what'd you get this shit for?" And the nigga said, "Yo, on everything I love, man." He said, "Yo, Rec," he said, "Yo, can I do my shopping by myself?"
Gay. We want to thank you. Come here. Don't sit on the bed at night. No homo. No, just don't get close to the bed. Don't get close to the bed. But it's just like, yo, we want to thank you for hosting the thing, man. It's been a pleasure. You didn't have to do it, and you did it.
No. I definitely didn't have to do it. I definitely didn't have to. First and foremost, I'm not getting in the bed. Shout out to him and what he did. I'm just gonna, if we can, just let's just put the camera a little this way, just so we're not. I don't want my shot to even I don't want it to come close to the bed at all.
That's my brother right here from day one. We used to wake up and, damn, pause, but like, check this out. Back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the.
He made it weird when he said, "Damn, pause." He made the joke weird. He really made it weird.
Over the Frosted Flakes, you know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented, you know what I'm saying? But it's my brother for real. We used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes because he used to always get up early with me. Now he's one of the richest stars in the world. And
What the f did Puff just say?
My family really got me out. Such a vibe. Yo, Toronto, we come to your city, Atlanta.
Okay, copy. 2020, but I can't sing 20, but I can't sing
Dallas. Play whatever you want to play, baby. Just here. You know?
Yeah, I love this drink.
Where you put my bag
I like
at?
when you like this, Daddy.
Yeah, where you put my bag
Daddy,
at?
I like when you scrambling and scraping. When you scrambling and scraping for shit. Why won't you party with me for your birthday, man?
We partied for my birthday before. You came to my party.
No, but me and you ain't never really party. You know what I'm saying?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
This interview. I know it's a really tough time for you right now, but we really appreciate your time.
Let's do it.
Now, Puff, P. Diddy, how do you want me to refer to you?
You can call me Love.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room, all the allegations. Are you attracted to men or women?
It depends on my mood, my vibe.
Is it true that you've had sexual relations with Meek Mill?
I can't tell you that. Oh my God! Hey, what's up, King Son? Man, you doing it, man. You deserve it, Daddy. You putting in that work.
They definitely used to say that. They probably still say it in New York in certain neighborhoods. They definitely used to call people. They know that.
Proud of you. I love you. Yeah.
I'm like Kennedy. You feel me? He like Clinton. I was the president for shit. Yeah, that's OG. We let it down. But I did.
Now, what was
All I can tell you, sir, is that he's gay.
Hold on. Who's that? I'm like, no. What's going on right there? Like that when they did that. That's it. Look. What?
All I can tell you, sir, is that he's gay.
That was weird. Look,
All I can tell you, sir, is that he's gay.
What was going on? Dude trying to get this.
All I can tell you, sir, is that he's gay.
Gay! He's gay!
I just wanna live my life to the fullest,
to the fullest, to the fullest. I just wanna live it to the
Play back, play down. That shit was weird as fuck.
This is the most expensive phone number in the world, and I own it. It cost me about $12 a year, which sounds crazy.
I have no question in my mind that this is going to be the end of Diddy as we know him. I can't see how he gets out of this. I just can't.
For the past 2 weeks, it's been all P. Diddy all the time, in the wake of some pretty shocking allegations.
This is a bombshell, and this is something where the impact is going to be reverberating around the globe for a variety of reasons.
And in case you somehow missed it, we've got a complete recap of everything we know so far and what could be coming down the pipeline.
It'll be the perp walk that'll be covered by every single outlet around the globe.
We've talked to experts, attorneys, investigators, and those closest with Diddy. And we're putting it all together here for you to make sense of everything as we know it right now.
If you had any semblance of respect left for Diddy after the Cassie filing, it's definitely gone after Little Rod, no question.
For the past 3 decades, we've come to know Sean Combs as multiple different names. P. Diddy, Puffy, Puff Daddy, Puff. The 54-year-old is a rapper, entrepreneur, and label exec. Things changed for him on March 25th when Homeland Security raided 2 of his homes, one in California and the other in Florida. There's no word yet whether Diddy himself was the target of those raids, and he's not been charged criminally. That being said, some allegations of his criminal past became a major topic of conversation when news of the raids broke.
That's what was so stunning when Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit earlier this year. It kind of broke the dam, and it was just the floodgates opened and all of these other allegations started to come to the surface.
That's Melba Pearson, a former prosecutor who's followed the Diddy case meticulously since it broke. Her interest actually dates back farther than just last month, when Diddy's Bad Boy for Life mantra was just a song. And we know about the allegations now that have happened in the past couple months via these civil suits. But if we go back, I know that you have kind of followed Diddy for a while and you're pretty knowledgeable about that era. From the 90s until now, prior to these civil lawsuits being filed, was there talk of wrongdoing on Diddy's behalf?
There really wasn't. You know, to compare him to R. Kelly, for instance, there were rumors swirling around R. Kelly from the beginning. And that started off with his marriage to a very underage Aaliyah. And that's when folks were like, okay, something doesn't seem right here. But like, kind of put it to the side, just kind of put a pin in it for a few decades until all the bombshell allegations and, well, ended up being proved in a court of law came forward.
That's gonna be fucked up if in court they say something about some. I want to see this like underage shit.
You know, came forth. I feel like with Diddy, we didn't hear that much. We knew that he partied hard. We knew that he was always going to high profile events and all of that. But I personally have never heard any rumors surrounding any wrongdoing or anything having to do with him. This is an artist who really came to prominence in the 90s. We remember all of the videos. He was very close with Biggie Smalls, who also tragically lost his life back in the late 1990s, early 2000s.
And they definitely investigating all that shit. Tupac too.
And so he was somebody who had this whole orbit around him, and so many different artists like Maze and, you know, all these different folks that sprung out from this record label and orbit that they were in. So he had a huge impact on what R&B and hip hop looked like in the 90s and the 2000s, and continued to be influential today in terms of other artists that have, you know, gained prominence and gained fame, as well as him as a producer having this really huge presence in the industry. So absolutely, this is a bombshell, and this is something where the impact is going to be reverberating around the globe for a variety of reasons.
But during this era, Diddy did have some trouble with the law. Back in 1999, he was arrested and charged in a shooting at a New York nightclub. His then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, and rapper Shyne were also arrested. J-Lo's charges were dropped, but it was Shyne who faced the most serious charges: 3 counts of attempted murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Ultimately, both Diddy and Shine went to trial. Diddy was acquitted, but Shine was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was released in 2009 and deported back to his home country of Belize. If we're looking at it in the 1999 lens or the early 2000s when they went to trial, what was everyone making of it then?
So I think people were not like horrified per se. I think they looked at it as, well, this is part and parcel of the hip hop industry. I don't think it was very shocking because, there's definitely a perception, somewhat reality as well, that there is violence in the.
On the real, it's clear that Puffy was a problem. He brought problems to everybody around him on the real.
Hip hop community and sort of that beef between different groups or different labels. We all know about the East Coast, West Coast beef that was going on during the 90s with Tupac on one side, Biggie on the other. So this was something that was an outgrowth of that time frame. So I don't think folks were super shocked at that juncture. I think what was more shocking was sort of Jennifer Lopez's involvement in all of this, because I don't think, even though she was like, yeah, I'm Jenny from the block, I don't think anybody really saw her as really going to be that quote unquote that chick who is coming with the firearm and is going to hold it down and ride or die for her man. Like
most women gonna do that. Most of these most women, a lot of women gonna do it. A lot of women gonna do it. Or from all walks of life. Professional women, they do that shit. They'll hold that shit down on the real. Like
I don't think people really saw that of her. So I think that was the most shocking part of the case back in 1999.
Really,
but the fact that Diddy and Shine, who was the artist who was involved in that incident, the fact that they were charged, I don't think anybody was super stunned.
The reason that we're talking about this decades-old shooting now is because it was brought up in a recent civil suit against Diddy. We'll take a closer look at the lawsuits against him soon, but for now, let's focus on this specific part of Rodney Jones or Lil Rod's civil suit. Here's what Lil Rod's lawsuit says, quote, Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the shooting in the nightclub in New York City with rapper Shine. Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, aka J-Lo, carried the gun into the club for him and passed him the gun after he got into an altercation with another individual. Now, with these renewed allegations that Diddy was the one responsible for the shooting, it's possible that investigators take another look at the case and reopen it. Wow. We spoke to Bobby Chacon, former FBI agent.
That with that lady that got shot on the internet yelling about it too at the time, like right now, she on there, he shot me in the face, I'm the person he shot. Oh yeah, they definitely gonna.
If there's a civil lawsuit that lays out this major allegation, what would it take to reopen an investigation into something that happened 25 years ago?
The lady on the internet
a different look at it. So in other words, he was acquitted on state murder charges. Now, federal charges can be different. You can have RICO, you can have a continuing criminal enterprise. You can have the underlying acts, the predicate acts, what we used to call them when I worked RICO cases, a RICO predicate act could be something like that 1999 case, and you can use it as a predicate act. You can bring it up. You can, when I worked cold cases of this type, sometimes with the passage of time, people aren't as intimidated and they're not as threatened, and they get away from the person who was the threat, and they feel more forthcoming to testify or to give statements in lieu of testimony. But certainly, I think that that case is going to be part of it. In the aftermath of that, they have witnesses that say he bragged about intimidating witnesses, paying off jurors.
That's why a lot of people gonna come forward now. They feel safe. He was a billionaire, so they probably like, man, fuck, I'm not gonna tell him. He probably gonna have somebody come kill me, kill my family, People feel a little safe.
Certainly, when you have that kind of stuff, if you go back and you find that juror that was paid off, or jurors, multiple, that may have been paid off, certainly that gives you the impetus to kind of come forward and refresh those charges on a federal case. So the federal cases will be a little different. The charges are a little different, so it's not double jeopardy. And so I think that case that you mentioned, that you cite, I think is certainly one of the ones they're looking to build into a much bigger, to me, maybe a RICO type case.
3 people were injured in the shooting, including Natanya Rubin. She's come forward over the past 2 weeks saying Diddy was the one who shot her in the face, not Shine. We talked to Bobby about this too. So could her allegations change things, increase the likelihood of an investigation ahead?
Oh, absolutely. When you have a witness like that, and I've seen those videos of her. I mean, she said, "Look, I was shot in the face, so I was staring at the person who shot me. I know it was him."
Video
I mean, that's
floating
pretty
around
strong evidence.
of that night.
You know, the defense
He
obviously
was
tried to
right there in
discredit
front of
her,
her, right before it
but that's pretty strong evidence from a victim of a crime like that. You know, she wasn't shot in the back where she couldn't see; she was literally shot in the face, and just I was looking right at the person who shot me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very, very strong evidence. And certainly, I'm sure they've talked to her already, and she would be a strong witness.
If we believe what's written in Lil Rod's lawsuit, Diddy straight up told Lil Rod Diddy, was the one responsible for the shooting, not Shine. That's also what we're hearing from Mark Curry, a rapper who worked with Diddy and appears on the song Bad Boy for Life. In multiple interviews, Mark has alleged Diddy paid off Shine in order to take the fall for him. We actually spoke to Mark right here on Law&Crime, where I asked him about these allegations.
I know that the incident that happened at Club New York between Wills with Puff and Shine, and J-Lo was there and Wolf was there. It was a very unfortunate situation because it was a female, I believe, that may have got shot or something like that during the situation, but it was not a good situation. And I don't say it was a payoff, but you say Shine went and did a long time in prison. Yeah. And then when he came home from prison, they extradited him and made him go back to Belize. And he couldn't come back and put his foot on the United States soil again. And to me, I was like, why? Only thing, he didn't really do anything to really get to where he can't come back. And then when you broke down everything, it was his voice would have been too powerful to say the truth. So in order to hide the truth, let's hide the person that has the voice. So to me, it was like, yo, you're hiding the person with the voice because you don't want him to tell his truth. And that's that. So it's like, okay, for you to go over here and live, it was a time where I think they had gave him a record deal. And he was supposed to do an album, and we never heard an album from him. But to me, the money that they gave him to do the record deal, the way that it was given to him and how that process went was just kind of a way to give him some money to say, hey, you know what? Take care of yourself, live life. Here's something from someone. And that's how that one went.
So we've got these allegations that Diddy was responsible as the shooter, but also allegations that J-Lo carried the weapon that Diddy used in the shooting. What's interesting here is that Cassandra Ventura, known publicly as the singer Cassie, says Diddy made her do the same thing. She filed a lawsuit in November of last year, laying out some pretty severe allegations about Diddy. To start, there's that gun allegation that on at least 2 occasions, Diddy demanded Cassie hold his gun in her purse. The lawsuit goes on to state, quote, there was no clear reason why Mr. Combs required her to hold his gun, except to reinforce.
She was participating all this time, though. You participating all the time. Why you come out now? Why? Because he with old girl, Carisha, or whoever, he with the city girls, like you.
His young girlfriend.
Why you wait all this
violent,
time
powerful, and dangerous.
Not only did Jennifer Lopez allegedly bring the gun to the club, now we're also looking at years later, Cassie coming forward and saying that Diddy forced her to carry a gun with her when they went out to different events. So again, I think that this is more along the lines of when you look at this from a domestic violence.
One of the better things that I decided to do in my adult life was to see a therapist.
If, like me, you suffer in silence, then you know how.
Violence lens from the standpoint of the abuser being very controlling and demanding certain activities to prove loyalty, to basically put yourself in a bad situation where only he can be the one to save you, basically. So in seeing that, the parallels between J-Lo's experience and Cassie's experience, number one, it brings more credibility to what Cassie said in her pleadings. But also, again, it causes us to look at Jennifer Lopez and be like, some of the comments she made about the end of her relationship to Diddy, in terms of, well, there was infidelity, and she kind of skirted the issue a bit. But when you start to look back at her comments, you start to think, ooh, were you in a domestic violence relationship with Diddy, much like how Cassie ended up in a domestic violence relationship with him?
What would have made her want to come forward, and what did you take away from that civil suit?
So the reason why she came forward at this juncture is because New York and California both passed laws around, which was called the Adult Survivor Act. So that basically extends the statute of limitations. So when it comes to any criminal charge in this country, there is a statute of limitations, which is a set amount of time in which charges can be brought, right? And then after that expires, that's it. End of the story, right? The only charge that does not have statute of limitations on it is homicide, murder. So if there was a murder, then clearly you could be prosecuted 20 years later, 30 years later. But like, a gun possession charge or something like that, if it happened 10, 15 years ago, that's the end of it. So Cassie, under the Adult Survivors Act, was able to file charges because the Adult Survivors Act extended the statute of limitations for, sexual assault and sort of sexual related crimes. The reason why this happened was because, again, we saw with Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein and so many others, the women or the people were victimized when they were younger, maybe just starting their careers. And they were afraid at that time to come forward because they figured, well, it'll be my word against his. He's this big, powerful person. Who would believe me? I'm just getting started, or I don't have the financial ability to file this suit and, be able to take care of myself and move forward. So now with that distance, with that time elapsed, and Cassie was able to move on with her life, start a new relationship. I believe she started a family. She let go of some of her musical ambitions, sadly, because of the fact that Diddy was controlling her career and would not allow her to release another album unless she did some horrible, horrible things. And even though she did those things, she still was not able to ascend in her musical career despite her having that talent. So now that she's more mature, she's older and more secure, she feels comfortable in coming forward. And in doing so, open the floodgates in terms of, first of all, breaking that image that we had of Diddy. And now we're seeing a whole other person, and then emboldening other survivors to come forward.
Yeah, with her going her way and starting life, he probably still was making it hard on her and shit. You know what I'm saying? Just like he still other artists publishing and all that shit. He probably was making it hard on her. You know what I'm saying? Trying to, cut when you in higher places, you could just, hey, no, don't let that go through. Don't let that go through. Cut that off. You know what I'm saying? Don't let that go through. Don't push that through. And you know what I'm saying? So
resulted in I believe 3 or 4 other women coming forward. And then, of course, now you have a bombshell lawsuit from Lil Rod that just, if you had any semblance of respect left for Diddy after the Cassie filing, it's definitely gone after Lil Rod. No question.
Beyond the gun allegations, Cassie put forth some other major accusations in her 35-page lawsuit. She says Diddy beat her, sometimes so severely that she had to hide out in hotels for days at a time, waiting for her bruises to heal. Cassie also alleged Diddy raped her and forced her to have sex with prostitutes, and even
the thing with that, women gotta put a stop to that shit and like right away whenever it happened. Because once you let a man get away with some shit like that, they gonna keep on doing that shit.
Recorded it. Then there's the allegation that Diddy got jealous when Cassie began flirting with the rapper Kid Cudi. She says Diddy blew up his car. Was there anything that really stood out to you in that lawsuit as a shocking allegation?
All of it. Just the vileness of it all, right? Like the fact that you force your girlfriend to have sex with sex workers, for his entertainment. And there's no consent here whatsoever. This is purely him forcing her into degrading situations for his own enjoyment. So it was just that level of depravity, I think, that really shocked me, because I was like, whoa. Like, especially being a former prosecutor, the worst side of humanity, right? There's no question about that. But to see in such explicit and graphic detail the horrors that this young woman went through only because she fell in love with the wrong person and thought that he also could help her career. She just wanted to sing, literally. And as a result of being involved with this person, she ended up being in situations that nobody has any business being in, but certainly, a young woman who is being drugged and forced to, consume drugs and to, basically be trafficked.
The music industry so cold. They do that shit to men and women. All that shit.
And it just, all of it really horrified me and just made me really, my heart just went out to her because I was just devastated reading that and thinking about the fact that she had to endure all of this alone and the shame that she probably felt and all of the healing and recovery she had to go through to be able to get to the point of feeling strong enough to be able to file this lawsuit. So all of those things go through my mind when it comes to her.
What's interesting about Cassie's lawsuit too is that she came forward with all of this information, and then a day later is when the lawsuit was settled between her and Diddy. And a lot of people are saying, is that because she knew more than she was letting on in this lawsuit and Diddy didn't want that to come out? Why may it have been settled so quickly?
I think it was settled quickly because, number one, I think he was calling her bluff. He didn't believe that she was going to file that lawsuit because, remember, like, the lawsuit gets filed, but there's usually machinations and discussions beforehand, right? It's not like completely out of the blue, this lawsuit just comes out of nowhere. So these discussions were happening between her counsel and his counsel, being like, listen, hey, this thing is going to get filed. So what do you want to do? Do you want to settle? And he's probably like, you don't have the guts to file this, right? And she's like, really? Watch me. She went, she filed.
Producers, if you struggle finding sounds and samples that work for you, then you have to check out this plugin. It's called
Stayed there long enough and got beat up.
And then the next day he's like, oh, she really wasn't kidding. And also,
if he
was like, wait a minute, I got to do damage control for my brand.
Go and just.
And so he's like, all right, let me leap into action and settle this for, and I'm sure it was for an exorbitant amount because he did not want all of these other folks to come forward. He did not want everyone knowing his very violent and disgusting proclivities. And, he basically was just trying to do damage control, but it was too late.
I mean, you mentioned there that he was hoping to not have others come forward, but it's interesting that several more people have come forward. There's 4 additional lawsuits, 2 Cassie's, and several of them mention Cassie by name and say, hey, because she came forward and told us about these allegations, we felt comfortable doing the same thing. So did it really backfire for Diddy then?
I think it did. I think it did, because if this had been settled without any kind of public involvement, any kind of media coverage, these other people may never have come forward. So by, kind of calling her bluff and saying, oh yeah, there's no way you're going to file this, he did himself a whole lot of damage. But I'm glad, because at least now the truth is going to come out and everyone will know who this person is. And now, of course, that kicked everything into high gear in terms of law enforcement involvement and investigations. So as much as this whole thing is sad and sordid, I'm glad that it's coming out so that more survivors can get the closure that they need and that he can be brought to justice for the crimes he's perpetrated on others.
Among those other lawsuits, another filed under the New York Survivors Act by Joy Dickerson Neal. Her allegations date back to 1991 when she was a student at Syracuse University. Joy says Diddy intentionally drugged her, resulting in her being in a physical state where she could not independently stand or walk. Joy also alleges she's a victim of revenge porn because Diddy allegedly recorded the rape and passed around that videotape. According to her suit, Joy demands a jury trial, as does Liza Gardner, who also says Diddy raped her in New York in the 90s. According to her civil suit, Liza and her friend met Diddy at a party and later went with him to an after party where she, quote, was offered more drinks and coerced into having sex with Combs. Liza says Diddy and another man raped her and her friend. Later on, she says Diddy choked her to the point that she lost consciousness. While Jane Doe doesn't list her name in the lawsuit, she does list multiple photos of herself and Diddy. Her allegations date back to 2003 when she was just 17 years old and in 11th grade. Her lawsuit states at this time, Diddy was twice her age and one of the most well-known and influential music artists of all time. Jane Doe alleges Diddy flew her from Michigan to New York on a private plane and raped her in a recording studio. All this leads us back to Lil Rod's 74-page lawsuit that was filed back in February, detailing a laundry list of wild accusations. Melba says all this parallels a trajectory we've seen before.
Oh, it absolutely is a fall from grace. I have no question in my mind that this is going to be the end of Diddy as we know him, right? And the next chapter is going to be him incarcerated, much like R. Kelly. And which is, of course, sad, tragic, and horrible, not only for him, but more importantly for the survivors who have gone through some horrific experiences. But yeah, I think this is definitely going to be the end, because with all of the allegations that have come forward and come forth at this juncture, all the artists that have come forward alleging wrongdoing, I can't see how he gets out of this. I just can't.
According to Lil Rod's lawsuit, he lived with Diddy for months at a time while working on Diddy's Love album. During this time, he says Diddy sexually assaulted him, forced him to have sex with prostitutes, and drugged him. On top of all this, Lil Rod says his allegations are corroborated with hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Mr. Combs, his staff, and his guests engaging in some serious illegal activity, because Diddy apparently required Lil Rod to record him constantly. The lawsuit even lays out some pictures, like this one, showing Cuba Gooding Jr. with his arm around Lil Rod. According to this suit, Lil Rod alleges Diddy was, quote, grooming him to pass him off to his friends. This fear became reality when Mr. Combs introduced Mr. Jones to Cuba Gooding Jr. while they were on Mr. Combs' yacht. Court documents go on to state, Cuba Gooding Jr. began touching, groping, and fondling Mr. Jones's legs, his upper inner thighs near his groin, the small of his back near his buttocks, and his shoulders. We'll note right here, we haven't heard from Cuba about these allegations since the lawsuit was filed, and he doesn't face criminal charges in relation to Lil Rod's accusations.
I don't know. Lil Rod look like he got some fruit in his tank. I don't know.
But we do know he's faced similar allegations in the past.
It seemed like Lil Rod came out with his allegations when he found out he wasn't getting no publishing from Puffy. Then he started coming out like allegations. It seemed like he participated though.
Back in 2019, Cuba was booked.
It seemed like once he figured out they didn't give him no publishing from the Love album that he did, he started documenting shit, and then he came out with his allegations
on misdemeanor charges of forcible touching and sexual abuse after allegedly groping a woman in Times Square. By the next year, 3 women had come forward accusing him of non-consensual sexual touching. He eventually reached a deal with prosecutors that required 6 months of counseling but no jail time. We actually spoke to Melba about this early on, and she says it may be tough for Cuba to combat.
I'm getting the feeling where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Because now we have 2 different instances where you're accused of the same type of behavior, years apart. I think there's something there. And I don't know that Cuba Gooding Jr. is going to escape from that one, because he already saw definitely people moving away from him within Hollywood circles and other circles once those first sexual assault allegations came out. So at this point, I don't think he's going to get away with it a second time.
On top of pictures of Cuba, Lil Rod's lawsuit lays out multiple others, including pictures of other defendants like Diddy's son, Justin Combs. According to the suit, Justin solicits prostitutes, underage girls, and sex workers and would engage in freak-offs. After the lawsuit was filed, Justin Combs' rep made a statement reading, quote, Justin Combs categorically denies these absurd allegations. They are all lies. This is a clear example of a desperate person taking desperate measures in hopes of a payday. There will be legal consequences for all defamatory statements made about the Combs family. But then last Thursday, Diddy's other son, Christian Combs, who goes by the name Combs, was the subject of a civil suit filed in LA. Plaintiff Grace Omar K., who is represented by the same attorney as Lil Rod, alleges Christian Combs drugged her and sexually assaulted her on a yacht in late 2022. Christian's
But some
attorney
people
says the
do it too.
lawsuit is made up
And some
of,
people
quote,
aren't.
manufactured lies and irrelevant
And
facts,
some people
and they are seeking to
participate.
dismiss the outrageous claims. The allegations go
Some
farther
people
than
play way
Diddy's
in the
relatives,
lab.
but also his closest associates, like Chief of Staff Christina Coram, who's listed as a defendant in Lil Rod's suit. Lil Rod goes so far as to compare her to Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime companion, who was eventually convicted on federal sex crimes charges. He alleges she and others received financial benefits in return for assistance, support, and facilitation of Combs' sex trafficking venture. So far, we haven't.
So one of the most important things for me with anything on the two bus is I
heard from her about these allegations. But then there are other defendants listed, like corporations such as Universal Music Group and Motown Records, along with their higher-ups. To understand this, I spoke to entertainment attorney Mitra Ohurian. In addition to these record labels that are listed as defendants, they also list CEOs, a former CEO of Motown Records and then a current CEO of UMG. So I'm wondering why, in addition to these labels, are they listing the CEOs?
Yeah, they're trying to pierce the corporate veil. They're trying to say that, you as individuals also were aware of these things happening. What I found incredibly shocking and disturbing was that they were listing personal addresses of people's homes. And that was very surprising to me that they didn't, redact that. That would worry me with not only something that's so high profile, but also something where there are a lot of, potential violent actors that might be tangentially involved. And so that naming them individually, I think, again, is really this, throw everything against the wall and see what sticks and make a lot of people very nervous.
Let's pause this P. Diddy story for a quick second to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's Law and Crime news package. It's stories like this that remind you never know what's going to happen, and the world is an unpredictable place. So when you're hurt, it can be confusing, it can be scary, and you don't really know where to turn. Well, enter Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm enterprise. And I never saw, aided, or abetted, or tried to conceal any sex trafficking activity. In short, there's no basis for any of the claims asserted against me, and I should never have been named a defendant in this law.
For some reason, I feel like it's bigger than Puffy now when they trying to name all these people and act like they, have parts in it. I don't know.
Lawsuits. Her name has since been dropped as a defendant in the suit. And as for Lucian Grange, his attorney says adding his name as a defendant is an attempt to fit a square peg into a round hole. So this is Donald Zacharin, who's representing Universal Music Group, Motown Records, and Grange. In a recent filing, he included sworn statements from 2 executives at UMG who counter what Jones alleged in his lawsuit. Zacharin also makes clear UMG has no ownership in Love Records, another defendant listed. But then there are people who are just named in the lawsuit, but not listed as defendants. We've already talked about Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jennifer Lopez, but Prince Harry is also name dropped. It's almost a throwaway line, though. It reads, quote, Mr. Combs was known for throwing the best parties. Affiliation with and or sponsorship of Mr. Combs' sex trafficking parties garnered legitimacy and access.
And that's another thing, like everybody, he always throw the best parties. Come on, man, like you don't know nobody that throw good parties. It ain't like it's I know everybody knows somebody that throw good parties. It ain't gotta be like it's just drugs and shit there, but I know everybody knows somebody that throw good parties. Like
to celebrities such as famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries like British Royal Prince Harry. That means Prince Harry isn't accused of any wrongdoing, but a different person mentioned in the suit is. That's 25-year-old Brendan Hall. That's body cam of Brendan after his arrest in Miami a few weeks ago. He was taken into custody at the airport while trying to board Diddy's private jet. He was booked for cocaine and controlled substance possession after investigators say they found drugs in his bag. He's since been released on bond. But this wasn't the first time we heard Brendan's name. He's in Lil Rod's lawsuit, where he's described as, quote, Mr. Combs's mule. He acquires and distributes Mr. Combs' drugs and guns. His name came up when I asked about people mentioned in Lil Rod's lawsuit.
Wow.
They will be hearing from investigators if they haven't already. Well, Brendan, we know, heard from investigators because he was arrested at the Opa-locka airport in Miami. And, he had, I believe he had narcotics on him with the cocaine. So, he's facing charges with regards to that. But this is a race to the courthouse steps. So when you have these lower level arrests, these are things that can be used to put pressure on the defendant to be like, listen, you're being charged with, trafficking amount of cocaine, for instance. We can drop those charges against you if you testify against P. Diddy, or tell us at least everything you know about the events surrounding P. Diddy, surrounding Cassie, Lil Rod, etc. And my guess would be Brendan will take them up with a swiftness and say, listen, yes, I did this, but it was at the behest of Diddy. I was forced into it, or whatever the story is, and he will sing like a canary in order to avoid criminal liability. So I could totally see that. Same thing with Young Miami, and though she's not facing charges, she may be thinking from the perspective of, okay, my name's out there. Let me do what I can to clear my name and to show that I'm fully cooperating with authorities, that I don't co-sign what Diddy was doing to other people. So I could see that being the impetus for her wanting to testify and cooperate with law enforcement.
Following Paul's arrest, his attorney Brian Bieber sent us a statement. It reads, quote, "We do not plan on trying this case in the media. All issues will be dealt with in court." Someone we know for sure is speaking with investigators, though, is Cassie. Melba says she's not surprised.
I expect that she would have, because again, if she's telling the truth, then she's going to give any evidence that she has. So in terms of if there's recordings she knows existed, right? I mean, she may not have possession of it, but she could be like, listen, in July of 2005, he forced me to do XYZ at, this particular hotel. There may be surveillance footage to show me going in and out of the building. There may be video that he took of the horrible events that may have happened that day. So now at least law enforcement will know exactly where to look and start to narrow down different timelines, and then also speak to other witnesses or maybe other survivors that were present and victimized at another point in time, but they can help corroborate some of what she's saying. And that is going to help put together the case against Diddy, likely for human trafficking, for sex trafficking, narcotics charges, etc.
So what we believe is that the Cassie lawsuit kind of spurred this investigation. But is it possible that Lil Rod's bombshell lawsuit that came out in February is really what kicked it into high gear? Because there we learned about the many hours, he says hundreds of hours of recordings. And then as we know, federal investigators were at multiple of his homes. Could those two things be correlated?
Oh, they absolutely.
Simply press generate. That sounds really cool.
They absolutely are. I would think that the feds or law enforcement was investigating from when Cassie's lawsuit was filed, but now they have additional fuel for the fire. So now in reading Lil Rod's lawsuit, now we're getting into drug use, we're getting into drug trafficking, we're getting into mules, we're getting into pink cocaine. Who knew? And so
that Tootsie, that Florida water.
You're hearing and seeing all of these other allegations that now the feds can be like, okay, now I know I need to look for surveillance tapes. Now I need to look for this aspect. Now I need to speak to these folks because they were listed in Lil Rod's lawsuit. So for instance, Young Miami was one of the people that were mentioned as having been at those parties and may have been forced to do certain things at these parties. So now the feds know to go and speak to Young Miami. We don't know if her path intersected with Cassie's during the time that she was there. I don't recall her being mentioned in Cassie's lawsuit. So this is a new person now, a new player that the feds can go and speak to get evidence and get testimony and then continue to build the case from there.
All of that leads us up to right now and the speculation of what's next for Diddy. As far as Diddy's name, who's all over multiple of these lawsuits, I mean, he's the main kingpin in all of this. He may be facing some reputational damage, but I'm wondering what's going on behind closed doors with him and his attorneys. What sort of game plan are they making?
Well, I'm going to say that that is going to be a very active war room right now, because basically they're going to be scrambling to figure out how to avoid criminal liability. Who are the people that are likely to testify against him? Can they try and mitigate that in any way, which I don't think they can? And then also preparing for criminal charges being filed and starting to think through what a defense strategy could look like, making sure that you have bond money set up in case, you know, there's bond available for whatever offenses he's charged with. And then, okay, making sure you have money set aside that wouldn't be, you know, otherwise encumbered because, you know, for whatever reason, right? I mean, there's a number of reasons why you may not be able to get cash out right away. Let's say if the cash is tied up in your house, you may not be able to get access to it right away. So you may want to have a separate pool just to be able to pay for that, right? So these are some of the logistics that his defense team might be looking at in preparation for the charges that will come, because there's no question in my mind charges will come.
I've talked to multiple different experts about this, yourself included, saying that charges are on the way. It's just a question mark of when, based on the timetable, the investigation, all the things that go into it. But let's say these charges do come whenever it is. What would it look like then when Diddy is arrested and booked into jail?
Well, I mean, it'll be the perp walk that'll be covered by every single outlet around the globe, right? So that is going to be, again, sort of that bombshell moment, because it's the culmination of all of these high profile and celebrities and folks coming forward with their testimony. So that's going to be huge. I think it's going to be very much parallel to what we saw with R. Kelly and other celebrities that have been arrested for similar crimes. So I think it's going to be a media circus in a lot of ways, but hopefully in all of this, the survivors will not get forgotten and will not get lost in the shuffle. They have to be the central focus of all of this. So, yeah.
It's also interesting that Diddy's case almost parallels what we saw with R. Kelly. They kind of mirror each other with the trajectory of things. And I'm wondering if it's possible that Diddy also faces a lengthy sentence if he is convicted. We saw that with R. Kelly, but could Diddy face the same thing?
I believe so. I believe so. Because again, we're looking at the number of charges, right? So if, let's say, the indictment comes back with 10 charges, there could be the question of whether or not those charges, if he's found guilty, would be run concurrently, meaning he serves his sentences on all 10 charges at the same time, or will they be consecutive? So will he, you know, serve his time on one charge and then face another, you know, X amount of years for the next charge, et cetera, et cetera. So I think all of those things will result in him facing a very lengthy sentence. I don't think he's, even though he may not be sentenced to life, whatever he may be sentenced to may end up being a life sentence, seeing that, you know, he's in his 50s. If he faces a 20 or 30-year sentence, that's effectively a life sentence.
As for what charges could be brought against Diddy, there are several possibilities.
I think we'll be looking at definitely narcotics charges because of the fact cocaine seemed to feature very prominently in all the legal filings. I think it's going to be around human trafficking or sex trafficking, basically, because again, you're moving people from one state to the other for the purposes of you know, sexual gratification, right? And without their consent, and you know, who knows if folks were underage. Like again, we're still all finding out all of the details.
They know damn well.
Again, the investigation's ongoing, so
they know damn
we
well
don't know where this may end. But those are the top charges I'm thinking of. There could be firearms charges, again, depending if guns were brought across state lines and people who were bringing them were not licensed or something along those lines. So those are the things that I'm thinking will end up showing up.
Probably wouldn't even like.
While it's still unclear what exactly the future holds for Diddy, Melba reminds us this has been a difficult road for his accusers.
One thing that was very stark for me was Little Rod coming out and talking about the abuse he suffered. Because not only did he talk about the players and the different people that were in the Diddy orbit and some of the horrible things he witnessed, he himself was a victim of abuse. And so I just want to bring that up and highlight that, because too often we don't discuss men as victims of abuse, of the victims of sexual assault, of victims of sexual harassment, things like that. And so I think we really have to, again, hold space for him and really just, center him in our thoughts, because this is a tough thing to have to come out and reveal. There's still society still has stigmas around masculinity, and is he less of a man because he was victimized? The answer is absolutely not. But again, you have all of those other issues layered on that make this so much more difficult to go forward and to tell your story. It's hard enough for female identifying victims of sexual assault, survivors of sexual assault, to talk about what happened. But then when you add the gender aspect of him being male and how that is received in a lot of different quarters, and even some of the ugly jokes that I've seen being made on social media, we have to really start to break down those stigmas and know that men can be victims and survivors of sexual assault, and they should be supported in the same way as any other sexual assault victim.
So what does Diddy have to say about all this? Well, he hasn't commented on the raids publicly, but in the weeks after several of the civil suits were filed, he did make a statement. It reads, quote, "Enough is enough. For the last couple of weeks, I have sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character, destroy my reputation, and my legacy. Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth." In response to the raids of Diddy's homes, his attorney released a statement the next day, reading, quote, "Yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities, or the way his children and employees were treated." As far as the allegations dropped in Lil Rod's lawsuit, Diddy's attorney Sean Hawley says, quote, "His reckless name-dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines. We have overwhelming, indisputable proof that his claims are complete lies. Our attempts to share this proof with Mr. Jones's attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, have been ignored as on our calls. We will address these outlandish allegations in court and take all appropriate action against those who make them. This story is constantly evolving with new information coming out daily. For updates in Diddy's case, make sure to check back right here with Law&Crime for the latest. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
Not not an indictment, just a complaint to arrest your client. You may want to then discuss with the government if they're looking to resolve this case, if it's going to go further on. And you have to understand that when you're doing federal criminal work, you also have to deal with the sentencing tables, which gives recommendations to the state, to the judges of where they should be sentencing a person should they be found guilty. And you have enhancements. If you go to trial, your levels go up, which is more time. But if you plead earlier and accept responsibility, you could have your sentence reduced by that, because they'll say subtract a certain amount of levels, which could save you a couple of years in your sentencing.
What we do know is that before federal agents raided 2 of Diddy's homes, multiple civil lawsuits laid out severe accusations against Diddy that, if true, could mean some serious legal battles ahead. To understand all the accusations, we have to head back to November of 2023, when Cassandra Ventura filed suit against Diddy. You probably know her as the singer Cassie. Cassie's 35-page lawsuit put forth startling accusations, including that Diddy raped her and forced her to have sex with prostitutes during their years-long relationship. Cassie also alleges Diddy recorded some of these illegal activities. Cassie's lawsuit was settled just 1 day after it was filed, but additional lawsuits laid out other claims too. Between plaintiffs Liza Gardner, Joy Dickerson-Neal, and Jane Doe, Diddy's accused of 3 more rapes, one of which was allegedly recorded. Then there's the bombshell lawsuit brought in February by Rodney Jones, also known as Lil Rod. His 74-page suit outlined all these allegations and more, including that Diddy forced people to use drugs, carry illegal firearms, and take the fall for a shooting. So let's start there with the 1999 nightclub shooting in New York. According to Lil Rod's suit, quote, Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the shooting in the nightclub in New York City with rapper Shine. This made major news back in 1999 because J-Lo, Diddy, and rapper Shine were all arrested in connection to this shooting, where 3 people were injured. J-Lo's charges were dropped, but it was Shine who faced the most serious charges: 3 counts of attempted murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Ultimately, both Diddy and Shine went to trial. Diddy was acquitted, but Shine was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was released in 2009 and deported back to his home country of Belize. But now there are allegations that he's the one who pulled the trigger and actually shot 3 people. So is that something he could face additional charges for?
Well, that would need a little more research because it'll be very fact sensitive. However, generally speaking, that if he was usually double jeopardy attaches, but if this was a state case he was acquitted of, that does not attach to a federal statute, which is a different jurisdiction, and it's a court of our whole country as opposed to a specific state. So it would be an interesting thing to see progress, and there would be a lot of legal arguments, but at the end of the day, I think they would be able to say this isn't a double jeopardy issue because it's a violation of a federal statute and not a state statute.
Lil Rod's lawsuit also alleges, quote, Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, aka J-Lo, carried the gun into the club for him and passed him the gun after he got into an altercation with another individual. Are there any charges that could be related to that, forcing someone to carry a weapon?
Well, yeah, absolutely. The most simplest is a conspiracy charge. A conspiracy is when you have more than one person who agree to violate a law. And if that's carrying illegal firearms, that could be a very strong case for the federal government. However, there is going to be a problem with statute of limitation problems for each individual offense. But the only thing that the government may try to do is show there was a conspiracy going on. And if you could show that over a period of time throughout the years that this conspiracy was continuing, then the statute of limitations keeps basically staying open because it doesn't start to run until the last event.
I'm glad you brought up the statute of limitations because a lot of these allegations date back to the 90s. Some are more recent in the past 1 or 2 years, but a lot are from 3 decades ago. So how would all of that play into what is ahead if these criminal charges are filed against him?
That's a very difficult question because I don't think we're in a situation where many lawyers have dealt with that situation. And we don't know is what we brought up earlier about the search warrant is we don't know what they're saying the connection is to whatever crime they're investigating currently. So it could be that they're just trying to basically take a look around and see where they're going to land and really focus on what proofs they can show and still beat the statute of limitations.
Moving on to the next accusation, coercion. This spans over several suits with multiple different accusations. In Liza Gardner's civil suit, she says after meeting Diddy, she, quote, was offered more drinks and was coerced into having sex with Combs. Lil Rod alleges Diddy used coercive demands to force record labels and their CEOs to assist and support Diddy's sex trafficking conspiracy. So what would the charges in relation to coercion be?
Well, they could be witness tampering. It could be a number of things. I think these are going to be very interesting situations to see how they play out because, a lot of times everybody thinks that trials are like something you could write a schedule for and that's the way the case is going to go. That's really not true because lawyers case there's no way to predict definitely what's going to happen and how people are going to be put together and evidence is going to come through. So it'll be very interesting to see how the government wants to go forward. And that way we'll be able to better predict at that point how the defense will move once they put their script out there of how they're going to proceed.
One accusation that might be harder to prove, at least according to Mike, is illegal drugs. One of the other interesting things that I saw in one of the lawsuits is that he required his staff to carry illegal drugs with them, basically so that he could come up to them and say, hey, I want XYZ drug, and they would have it in a fanny pack with them. from his butler to his chief of staff, multiple other people. That baffles me. I have never seen anything like that. Are there charges in relation to that he could face?
Well, absolutely, but I have a tough time with looking at that legally, because I always think part of a great defense there would be, wait a minute, how did he force you to do what you did that was illegal? Or are you just saying that because you're caught and this could help you? I think that's going to be a very big part of hurting the credibility of cooperating witnesses if, in fact, they are now claiming they did do drug stuff, but they were forced to do it. Now, if they just say, wait a minute, we were part of a drug ring and we all made an agreement, then it's not going to look that good for P. Diddy. But the other way, I don't know. Credibility is a big question.
As credibility comes into question, so too do some potentially life-threatening accusations, like that Diddy blew up Kid Cudi's car. This dates back to Cassie's November lawsuit. She explains that back in 2011, she had a brief.
One of the better things that I decided to do in my adult life was to see a therapist.
The biggest barrier to entry has always been finding a good therapist, but BetterHelp takes out all of the guesswork there.
BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding therapists easy, convenient, attainable, affordable. It has been such
a relationship with rapper Kid Cudi. She says that in 2012, Diddy told her that he was going to blow up Kid Cudi's car, and that he wanted to ensure that Kid Cudi was home with his friends when it happened. Around that time, Kid Cudi's car exploded in his driveway.
Well, that's something I think the prosecutors, if they find it to be credible and true, would be something they'd go after rather heavily, because this is very dangerous. It's someone actually specifically doing something with intention to hurt another person. And I think that would not go forward and look very well for P. Diddy in this case, especially if it was part of an ongoing conspiracy, because now those kind of incidents could come in front of a jury, and that's going to have a lot of problems for the defense, because it would be influencing the jury and thinking, wait, what kind of person would do something like this?
According to Mike, allegations of Diddy's physical abuse could also be hard to prove. We talked about the severity of blowing up Kid Cudi's car, basically because he was hoping to inflict harm. Some of the lawsuits also say that he physically hurt people. He beat them up. Cassie actually says that she has photos of her with bruises. She was forced to stay in hotels for weeks at a time in order for her bruises to heal. So the physical side of things too, is that something that Diddy could be facing charges about?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. But those kind of things, though, I don't think are so easy as people think they are when you're in front of a jury going by court rules and proof beyond a reasonable doubt, because I think everyone's first instinct is, wait a minute, this happened to you and it took you 4 years to tell somebody, things of that nature. And listen, but the government will probably put forward that the person didn't do or say anything because they were so fearful. But at the end of the day, you're in a bad position anyway. And aren't you also fearful of going to federal prison? So why wouldn't you just tell the government, this is what happened to me and you should go arrest this person? Why would you wait if you were really that afraid?
But beyond allegations that Diddy physically beat some of the plaintiffs, there are numerous accusations that he raped several victims. Cassie's suit lays out multiple rapes, like when Diddy, quote, forcibly pulled off Miss Ventura's clothing and unbuckled his belt. He proceeded to rape Miss Ventura while she repeatedly said no and tried to push him away. Joy Dickerson-Neal says she was raped by Diddy in 1991 when she was a student at Syracuse University. Liza Gardner says Diddy and another person also raped her in New York back in the 90s. Some of these allegations date back to the 90s, and by now, DNA evidence that would not even be possible to collect at this point. So how would they go forth with charges in that case if they can't really prove it in the DNA sense?
Well, many times sexual assault cases are proven just basically upon testimony. Sometimes there's not, physical evidence, or the physical evidence is not necessary, especially since if there's no dispute of whether or not these people had a physical sexual relationship, then you don't need that kind of evidence. The question becomes did this sexual relationship happen as a result of something we agreed upon or something you forced me to do? That's where the question becomes very big. And there's going to be, there's a lot of expert testimony out there saying that it's not unusual for a victim of a sexual assault not to report it immediately because they have to go through so much mental health kind of things to decide what's the best thing to do. So it's a complicated case, and I could never in a trial question asked of me on Law&Crime give a definite answer, because being a lawyer who tries cases is we never know until we're in front of that jury.
What about the survivors, those who are accusing Diddy of these rapes or sexual assaults? Would it be beneficial for them to testify against him?
Well, that's an interesting question, because they're going to have to see what their exposure is. Because if they were having these relationships with him, but also taking part in what they claim to be conspiracies that were ongoing, is they've got to see what the government will give as an agreement to either not prosecute them, give them a better plea deal if they cooperate truthfully, and things of that nature. So it's very difficult at this point in time to predict exactly what's happening, but you surely could sort of start evaluating what paths they may take so you can prepare your defense better.
But other accusations of rape stand out, like that of Jane Doe, whose lawsuit states at the time of the incident, Diddy was twice her age and one of the most well-known and influential music artists of all time. Now, I know some of the accusers were over 18 at the time of these alleged incidences, but there are multiple who were under 18. For instance, Jane Doe was only 17. She filed a civil suit last November against him. And then there are other allegations that Diddy was sexual with underage girls. So even if they did consent, so to speak, wouldn't it kind of negate the consent because they're not 18 yet?
Absolutely. That comes into basically a strict liability statute. It's basically like there is no defense to this unless we have the ages wrong and the years apart from both of you don't fit the federal statute.
Then there's the accusation that Diddy recorded this illegal activity. According to Joy Dickerson Neal, unbeknownst to her, Diddy video recorded the sexual assault. She now says she's a victim of revenge porn because Diddy showed the videotape of this alleged assault around to multiple people. Lil Rod says his allegations are corroborated with hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Mr. Combs, his staff, and his guests engaging in some serious illegal activity. Something that is interesting in this case is the allegation that there are hundreds of hours of video recordings and audio recordings of Diddy, his associates, other celebrities engaging in some pretty serious crimes, including rape or sexual assault. So would all of that really bolster the prosecution's case if they can bring forth videos showing Diddy committing these crimes?
Well, I think we'd have to.
This AI tool will take your idea and create a complete book, complete with design, images, layout.
See the videos first, because you have to wonder, the first question that would go into my head is, well, if these were videoed openly and they weren't first of all, the first question I'd ask is, if in fact he was committing a crime, why would he videotape it? Why would he preserve evidence showing he did a crime?
If he did, he got rid of it, because before the police went in his house, it's a video of him speeding home, and then he's pulling his driveway, and a Jeep comes speeding, pulling the driveway. Then his jet was found in the islands, but he was still here. But he was here. So what? So what y'all think? He sent that.
Why would you secretly record it?
He had somebody go drop.
So my questions would be to those victims is, well, you consented to having this on a video, didn't you? And if the answer is no, then you may have a good argument to the jury and say, well, wait a minute. If he was committing a crime, what was the purpose of him preserving evidence that's now being used against him? Unless, in fact, he only did it because both people were enjoying themselves, and this is what they did.
Exactly.
I know we've been talking about these dozens of different pretty serious allegations, but are there some that are worse than others, some that are more likely to have charges stick?
Well, I think the drug cases, if they keep showing that this was a continuing process through the years, is going
One
to.
thing was weird to me that he got liquor, and I ain't against PD. I ain't on the side. I'm just being logical, just being real. He got liquor, and they had liquid cocaine. Think about that.
To be the strongest
argument
for the government.
I'm just saying.
To not worry about the statute of limitations and establish an ongoing.
That's what he
conspiracy.
got caught with.
When you say ongoing conspiracy, what would it take for investigators or prosecutors to prove that Diddy was part of something like that?
Well, it's going to take, the prosecutors would love to have cooperating witnesses, people who are going to admit to it and say we did that. That's their strongest type of evidence, provided those alleged cooperators have credibility to them and are not looking like they're trying to deflect things away from them and the attention away from them. Conspiracies also, usually prosecutors like to prosecute those type of cases because it relaxes the rules of evidence. It allows to, in furtherance of a conspiracy, something that would be considered hearsay in a case is not considered hearsay in a conspiracy if they can show that that statement was made in furtherance of the conspiracy. So it gives a very big advantage to the government.
So what does all this mean moving forward? There's really a lot going on here, many dozens of allegations against Diddy. Do you think that this is going to be difficult for his defense to combat?
As a defense attorney, we never like to think anything's difficult because we have the presumption of innocence, but we have to go through all this sort of evidence that's coming out now. So it's very difficult to predict. And you have to wonder, quite frankly, if all these things were in videos and they were out there in the public for all these years, why now? Why didn't you, if you as the government felt he was such a danger to society, what are you waiting for all these years to allow him to keep walking around? So I think this is going to be a very interesting case, and it's going to take a long time to prepare a defense for. So I don't think we're going to be talking about this trial within the next year. I think it's going to be a couple of years and before we're talking about it. So I'm going to look a lot older.
We haven't heard much from Diddy about these allegations in 2024, but last December, he did make a statement to his social media. It reads, quote, "Enough is enough. For the last couple of weeks, I have sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character, destroy my reputation and my legacy. Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth." In response to Lil Rod's lawsuit, Diddy's team says in part, quote, "His reckless name dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines. We have overwhelming, indisputable proof that his claims are complete lies." As for the federal raids, Diddy's team calls it a gross overuse of military-level force, saying there's no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated. That was a look at all the crimes P. Diddy is accused of making. And just a reminder, he has not been charged criminally in regards to any of these accusations. For the latest developments in this case, stay right here with Law&Crime. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
Coaches and course creators, are all your eggs in the Facebook basket? You may be thinking, yeah, but these ads are making me money. Well, remember,
where is Diddy? He's spending the last 72 hours looking very not concerned about the ongoing sex trafficking investigation instigated by the federal government. Homeland Security investigators piling into a simultaneous search of 2 Diddy locations. Seemingly, that doesn't bother him. As a matter of fact, he reposted one of his music videos titled "Victory," a woman writhing up and down on a stripper pole, seemingly in a cage. And then you see a cutaway of Sean Puffy Combs on the run from apparently federal agents. Wow. I don't know that this is a good time to repost that, but he did. Guys, take a listen to this.
While initial reports indicated that Combs may have left the country, it appears the mogul has remained in Miami since the raids. Combs was seen taking his teen daughters to Topgolf and stopping by a restaurant in the days after the searches. Over the Easter holiday, Combs posted several photos of his youngest daughter, Love. Most recently, the rapper was caught on camera riding his bike to South Beach. Combs was all smiles, appearing unbothered by the continuing investigation into allegations of sex trafficking and sex assault.
As Sean Puffy Combs gets warnings from behind bars that his life is in danger, he goes for a bike ride. With me, an all-star panel to make sense of what we know right now. But first, Akilah Brantley, investigative reporter with DailyMail.com, on the story from the very beginning. Akilah, what's the latest?
Thanks for having me, Nancy. Things have just gone from bad to worse for Diddy. And now not only is he being accused of misconduct, but his son is being accused. Now, his son, Christian King Combs, he's only 26 years old, and he was named in a lawsuit by a young woman, 25-year-old named Grace, who was working on a yacht in December 2022, when she says that Christian Combs assaulted her, that he's tried groping her, that he trapped her in a room, and that it wasn't until another crew member came to stop it that she was finally released. She said that she was forced to take a tequila shot, and there's actual audio of that incident where she asks, "Is this drugged?" And he says, "Take the tequila shot."
Okay, wait, where did the video come from?
So it's an audio that was a transcript of the audio was included in the 31-page lawsuit. So apparently, I'm not sure who exactly was recording, but there is a recording out there.
Joining me very quickly, and I want to circle back to you, Akilah, about Sean Puffy Combs, aka Diddy, spinning. I mean, this guy is a master promoter. That's what he has done to become a media mogul with a net worth of around $1 billion. He spins it, right? And that's what he's doing right now. Every move he makes in the public anyway is for a reason. To Bernarda Villalona, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor at villalonalaw.com. Bernarda, thank you for being with us. Here's the reality. Sean Puffy Combs has been dragged into another lawsuit claiming sex attack on his son because it occurred on Diddy's, Sean Puffy Combs' yacht. Okay? And the allegation is that Combs aided and abetted his son in this attack. But what I want to ask you about, Bernarda Villalona, is the audio tape that Akilah Brantley's talking about. Can I see, Bernarda, please? Bernarda, to get a video or an audio tape, even if it's a 911 call from the police, for Pete's sake, the prosecutor or whoever wants to bring it in has to go through a series of evidentiary hoops. In fact, it's laid out in black and white in the criminal code. You have to prove veracity. You've got to show who made the audio. Sometimes why did they make the audio, in as the circumstances surrounding the audio being made. You have to show chain of custody on the audio to make sure it hasn't been tampered with in any way. So when I say who made it, where did it come from, that's got to be proven in court before it can be allowed before a jury.
Yes, absolutely. So, Nancy, what it seems like is that Little Rod, who's one of the people that is also suing Puffy, was the one who actually made the recording.
Excuse me, Bernarda. I don't know if you're expecting to go over to his house after the trial, but I believe you're referring to Rodney Jones, a.k.a. Little Rod.
Yeah, so supposedly it was Little Rod. Rodney Jones was the one who made this recording, which calls into question is why he was making a recording, and if he knew what was going to happen, so he did it thinking that it was going to happen, and he wanted evidence of it. Interestingly enough, that the attorney that's representing Ronnie Jones is the same attorney that's representing this complainant, this victim in this alleged sexual assault. But this is very damning evidence, because usually in cases like this, Nancy, what's the number one defense? Credibility, believability. She's making it up. This is a money grab. But here you have an actual audio recording that the complainant, the victim, is going to be able to authenticate and say, that is me on the recording. That is actually what happened. There is nothing missing from that recording, and will be able to meet the burden to have that piece of evidence move into evidence if it's in a civil lawsuit, in a civil case, or even in a criminal one. So that hurdle is going to be met. But this is very damaging against his son. Also damaging against Diddy, because it can even possibly go in, if the federal prosecutors are looking at a RICO charge, can go in as one of those acts.
You're throwing around a lot of legal phrases. When you say RICO, it's typically referred to as racketeering, but what she means is an organized conspiracy. And it doesn't have to be that organized. It could be, for instance, Sean Puffy Combs gets his number one hench person to bring in a girl, and somebody else spikes a drink. As a hypothetical, it's just basically a group, even if loosely joined together, joining together for a criminal enterprise such as sex trafficking. And Bernarda Villalona, I like what you said. You're a former prosecutor, and you look at the evidence, i.e., this audio tape. Hey, is this drugged? The woman says before she drinks it. And the audio says that Combs' son says, just drink it. Drink it. Okay, long story short, that's a problem for the defense. So they are going to attack the alleged victim. They're going to drag her through the mud. But if they can get that audio in, that goes a long way to corroborating her story. I'm very curious from where that audio came. Now, this as it's spinning out. Kayla Brantley joining me, dailymail.com. The Instagram model Jade Ramey denies in Little Rodney Jones lawsuit that she was ever a sex worker. So the feds are not going to be able to count on her, because she's already shot her credibility in the foot by going public and saying that. But I see a litmus test here. When you say, hey, you're lying on me, that's slander, that's libel, are you going to sue? Because if you sue, the truth is a complete defense. So let's just see if a lawsuit comes out of this. But I want to talk about Combs being a spin master, a powerhouse in the music industry, largely because he is not only talented, but a genius at marketing. This promoter is putting out there his actions implying a lot. He's biking, he's smiling. Come to me, Liz. I want to show the viewers something. This weekend, he was going over a bridge on a bike, and he let go of the handlebars and just went freestyle. Hey, look, Mom, no hands. Like in Titanic, when Kate Winslet just lets go, right? Like, he doesn't have a care in the world. Biking, smiling, drinking wine. Translation, I'm not worried. It's a spin, Kayla.
Well, as you can see, these allegations go back decades, and he's gotten away with things thus far. So I feel like he's just acting as if he will continue to get out of things and get away from things. It's something that he's accustomed to, living this glamorous lifestyle. And when he tells people to do things, they do it. When he tells people to cover things up, they do it. So for him, obviously things have gotten much worse. He's never had a huge raid on his house, a federal investigation. But for him, this is just another issue that he's hoping will be swept under the rug.
To Scott Johnson joining me, forensic psychologist, 32 years dealing with sex predators at forensicconsultation.org. Scott, thank you for being with us. You know, I prosecuted a lot of rape cases, a trafficking case with a 14-year-old little victim. I can't even count them all, Scott. And sometimes a defendant comes into court and he looks really worried, okay? Sweating, fidgety, can't meet anybody's eyes, can't look them in the face. And there are others that are bold and arrogant because the sex attack victims mean nothing to them. They are so convinced of their own power, their wealth, their prestige. They believe nobody is going to believe the victim.
Right. And part of that narcissism and psychopath traits of being able to portray themselves is socially great and then have the equally opposite deviant side of getting away with things, covering it up, and just blowing it off with minimal fear of consequences. And that's really, I think, what we're seeing with him is portraying this I just really don't care lifestyle, when in fact a normal person, if you will, would have been hiding, would have been scared, would have been, worried about going to prison and the reputation. He's just out living his life again. He doesn't
His
care.
publicist told him to do that.
Well, as a matter of fact,
Go ride a bike.
an associate of Sean Puffy Combs,
off with
aka
your family.
Diddy, has released a
So they
highlight
can see the media, like,
reel
you know.
of Sean Puffy Combs' lavish parties. This emerges with Combs partying with Hollywood friends, A-listers, and designer clothes. I want you to take a look at this.
As rumors swirl around that way you could fund your businesses, investments, and passive income streams to start living the life that you deserve and grow your income. Just click anywhere on this video.
Sex trafficking allegations against Sean Diddy Combs, many celebrities in Combs' circle have remained silent. Others, especially those named in Rodney Jones' lawsuit, have rushed to the rapper's defense. Producer Stevie J posted a highlight reel of Combs' 50th birthday party to Instagram, showing off many A-list attendees. While the post purports to indicate what a real Diddy party looks like, it may also serve as a reminder to those pictured that they were on camera.
Kobe Bryant, Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, Mary Blige, Kim and Khloe Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, Post Malone, Naomi Campbell, Cardi B, Big Sean, Travis Scott, The Weeknd, Kanye, Jaden Smith, Snoop Dogg, Queen Latifah, Kevin Hart, Machine Gun Kelly. I can't even read them all. So I guess the point is all of these A-listers are partying with Combs. You think the feds care? Everybody parties with Puff. That's Stevie J's visual reminder. Stevie J posting a video that Combs' biggest PR offensive to date is this video showing star after star after star partying with Sean Puffy Combs. Back to you, Scott Johnson. You think the feds care?
Oh, absolutely not, because this is just him portraying this socially normal, respected kind of individual soiree, when in fact the dark side's still going on. And so regardless of who he's with, it doesn't take away at all the credibility of any of the alleged victims or the charges against him.
To you, Bernardo Villalona, though, what about a jury? What about the association between Combs and these superstars like Mary Blige, like The Weeknd, like the Kardashians and the Jenners, that could actually affect a juror?
Absolutely, because you got to think juries are normal people. They may be fazed by all of these stars and it may affect their judgment. But I think the feds do care, Nancy, and this is how. The feds may want to question, may want to subpoena these A-listers to see whether they have any knowledge of what happened at these parties, whether they have anything that can move the ball or any interest, or have they seen or heard anything criminal-wise. So they do care in that sense. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them get subpoenas.
Including Golden Boy Ashton Kutcher, who apparently is preparing to be subpoenaed. Of course, he's not saying that, but sources are saying that. Is that real? What they better be worried about instead of posting birthday videos with stars is what we have been told. Video and audio recordings depicting sex acts by Diddy and others on victims, be they willing or unwilling, remains to be seen. Listen.
The Rodney Lil Rod Jones lawsuit alleges there's evidence of the sexual assaults and sex trafficking as hidden cameras record everything throughout the Combs homes, which is why homes in LA and Miami were raided. Combs' former bodyguard, Gene Deal, commented that if there are cameras in Combs' homes, there may be compromising video of politicians and princes. The claims are reminiscent of the cameras Jeffrey Epstein allegedly used as an insurance policy against powerful friends like Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton.
Footage of
To Barry Golden joining us, former senior inspector with the U.S. Marshal Service, now with Golden Consulting and Investigations. Barry, thank you for being with us. Keeping videos? Seriously? I mean, I don't know if he intended to keep the videos or just never erased them, but apparently during the raids on his 2 domiciles, videos were seized. I mean, if that's true, what an idiot to keep videos. I mean, help me, Barry Golden.
That's what people do. People keep videos to look back on, later in time. And that's why I think
Okay,
that
could
this
you just stop right
investigation-
there, Barry Golden? Barry Golden, please stop. Once in a while, I relook at videos of my children through the years going to Santa because I happen to have it on a reel. The way you said that, you made it sound so innocent. Yeah, people look back on videos and reminisce. What? These are sex videos, potentially, of unwilling victims. That means rape. Rape. That's what we're talking about. What do you mean to reminisce?
Well, I'm not just people they keep the videos. And, one thing that I look at it in some of the audio recordings that you have and the video recordings, especially that audio recording on that yacht, one thing you may want to look at is that somebody has to authenticate that audio recording. It's an audio recording. So if the allegations that Rodney Evans is the one that took that audio recording, that needs to be date and time stamped somehow, just so you don't have some audio that happened, you don't know when. It needs to be date and time stamped, and it's probably taken by his cell phone, which means Rodney Evans probably is a witness to some of the partial alleged, sex acts that might have happened if he recorded that. Maybe not all of them, but part of them. So, but all these videos are going to need to be date and time stamped and have an accurate time when they happen.
You know what? I got bigger problems than the date and time stamp, Barry Golden. Of course, you're right. But yes, of course, you're right. Evidentiarily, you're right. And that's got to be done by the feds if they're going to bring this type of evidence into trial. But I got a bigger question. Scott Johnson, I need a shrink. And you're a forensic psychologist. What kind of perv keeps videos of allegedly unwilling sex acts with victims for the feds to race in their armored vehicle and seize?
Yes, and out of narcissism, they keep these videos so they can replay them, enjoy them, get off on the power that they is demonstrated in the video, but also as a source of blackmail for those involved to keep them quiet. So two
wait.
prongs.
So you're saying blackmail on the victim to keep the victim quiet? And all of these are allegations. Nobody's been tried. Nobody's been found guilty. In fact, Sean, Puffy, Diddy, P. Diddy, Combs says he's innocent. So wait, let me understand this. The alleged rapist, you're saying, would use the videos to blackmail the alleged victim? Isn't that bass backwards? Shouldn't the victim be using it against him?
She's trying to say ass
well,
backwards.
It's one way to not only keep the victim quiet, but also
is that bass backwards?
Quiet. And all of these are allegations. Nobody's been tried. Nobody's been found guilty. In fact, Sean, Puffy, Diddy, P. Diddy, Combs says he's innocent. So wait, let me understand this. The alleged rapist, you're saying, would use the videos to blackmail the alleged victim? Isn't that bass backwards? Shouldn't the victim be using it against him?
Well, it's one way to not only keep the victim quiet, but also others that were participating from possibly testifying against what was allowed to happen. So from that standpoint, it's a power piece in the chess game for the offender, as well as going back and reminiscing about it, because likely
Why
that's
do
what
you
he does.
keep saying that? You and Barry Golden reminiscing. Like, hey, you remember that time we got in the RV and crossed the country together? That
I know you've tried it all. Referrals, word of mouth, cold outreach, ads. Maybe
that's reminiscing. What you said earlier, I think, would be what's happening, where you, and I'm just a JD, okay, you're the shrink, but you look back on the rape and you get sexual excitement out of that.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm queuing in with myself here, but this whole reminiscing thing, he's not some grandma on the front porch with a rocking chair going through the photo album.
Correct, but he is getting off and aroused to what's going on because that turns him on. And so what Barry was saying and I'm saying is that for the offender, this is a momentum for them as well to re-enjoy what happened, as well as for blackmail purposes.
To Brett Brown, joining me, Executive Director of SAS, that's Surviving Assault Standing Strong. It's a nonprofit on a mission to eradicate abuse and trafficking. Brett Brown, I mean, really? These women, and one man I'd like to add that we know of so far, are alleging that they were forced or coerced into sex. And now there are videos we are learning. Just to add insult to injury, some of these episodes were videotaped and some idiot kept the videos.
Yes, I see a pattern here that we see a lot among predators, and it is one of ownership. Sean Combs sets out to own his victims, and he does it in a variety of ways, but usually beginning with gifts that are Trojan horse gifts. So if you're looking to get on a label, if you want a nice place to live, if you're looking to kind of, record a record, any of these things, it's people's dreams, and then he takes them and he twists them into a nightmare. And he maintains this ownership over people through threats and intimidation. And it's been clear this is a man who makes good on his promises. He follows through on those threats. And so how many times has he been brought to justice? So when you look at the victims over the years, they're trying to figure out what survival looks like. How do they stay alive and keep going without having to relive this over and over again? For some of them, it is silence. And for others now, they are finally speaking out, even though they may be videoed.
The U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, previously stated that 4 Jane Does and 1 John Doe had been interviewed as part of the Sean Combs sex trafficking investigation. We're now learning Combs' ex, Cassandra Ventura, has been working with the feds for weeks, possibly even before the raids. Ventura may have expanded on the claims made in her November 2023 lawsuit to provide investigators with the probable cause necessary to execute search warrants in the Mogul's homes.
Okay, that is Cassie Ventura, who's famous in her own right, but there are 4 Jane Does and 1 John Doe who have been interviewed by the feds. Listen.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard a lot of business, because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV, speaker stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
Okay, wait. Okay, it's hard to make out what he's saying, but I have transcribed it. I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would and tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard a lot about business because they would do it. What they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff. And I was like a sex slave. There you are. That is Cassie Ventura on multiple of her album covers. Beautiful. So let me understand, to Kayla Brantley, there are right now, we know of 4 Jane Does that have been interviewed and 1 John Doe, who I am guessing is this guy, Jonathan Odie.
Yeah, Nancy. So as you heard, that there's these John Does and these Jane Does who are being interviewed, who obviously were paid a lot of money to keep quiet. Now that clearly hasn't worked out for Diddy, and this is somebody who has a lot of power, like we said, a lot of influence, like we said. And going back to the latest lawsuit filed by the woman on the yacht who alleges Diddy's son groped her. She also named Diddy for aiding and abetting. Now, she alleges that she did file a proper complaint, but that things just kind of got swept under the rug. And she alleges that Diddy paid off the captain to turn a blind eye. So if we're talking about his power, his influence, he's used to paying off anyone he can to get things to quietly go away.
Exactly. Now, I want to go back out to Brett Brown, Executive Director of Surviving Assault, Standing Strong. I've seen a lot of rapists get away, slip through the cracks for various reasons. I wonder how long SPC, Sean Puffy Combs, has managed to do that, if at all.
It seems as though this has been going on for decades. And so when we're looking at the victims in these cases, they are having to make really difficult decisions while at the same time they are reliving their experience over and over again as more video and more audio comes out and more people speak. And so it's a long and arduous process with no guarantee at the end so far.
Scott Johnson, you were weighing in earlier about the potential sex recordings.
Yes. Yes. And so again, back to, using them for, in their mind, reliving what for them was a positive experience.
Just
and
say it for Pete's sake, Scott Johnson.
Exactly. That's what they're doing. It's a turn on for them, but also a potential blackmail piece to keep people quiet. And as has already been said, he gets away with things because people can cover up. He's not worried about it. He's not hiding. He's actually sitting back, probably reveling in the fact that all of this is going on, and he's expecting everything to go away and will continue to.
The best side hustle to start in 2022 is not by doing e-commerce, real estate, or writing blogs that no one's ever going to read.
To attack the credibility of any victim.
Well, hey, there's a track record. It has gone away, Kayla Brantley. Remember the claims that were made not too long ago, and there was a hush-hush, most likely multi-million-dollar payout to get rid of them?
Yep. After Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit the next day, they settled it out of court for an undisclosed amount. And I think what's happening here is that Diddy thought the risk of having these videos was worth it to have blackmail on these high-powered people that he had these videos of. And in an Epstein-esque fashion, it worked out. Maybe we would have had lawsuits. Maybe we would have had raids and federal investigations years ago if he didn't have these videos for potential blackmail on these high-powered people.
Well, it goes beyond that, guys. This is incredible to me. But in the last hours, the alleged victim's lawyer has been attacked in claims that the victims are out to, quote, embarrass SPC, Sean Puffy Combs, completely ignoring the hell that sex trafficking victims go through. Oh, no. Yeah, that didn't happen. Don't look there. Look over here. Diddy's embarrassed. Listen.
Tyrone Blackburn, the lawyer representing both Rodney Jones and Grace O'Marquet, the latest to sue Combs, is accused of improperly filing several lawsuits to, quote, garner media attention, embarrass defendants with salacious allegations, and pressure defendants to settle quickly. Judge Denise Cote has referred Blackburn to the New York Federal Court's Grievance Committee, which has the power to disbar Blackburn. Sean and Justin Combs' lawyer, Aaron Dyer, stated the latest filing by Blackburn is, quote, filled with the same kind of manufactured lies and irrelevant facts we've come to expect from Blackburn. We will be filing a motion to dismiss this outrageous claim.
Okay, let's analyze what we just heard. Okay, let me understand something. Kayla Brantley joining me and everybody on the panel again. We're not having high tea at Windsor Castle. If you, Charles and Camilla, look around, do you see them? No, you don't. Jump in, for Pete's sake, if you have a thought. Kayla Brantley, let me understand this. I was used to it as a prosecutor. Every big trial I had, I would get a claim that I needed to be thrown off the case. Why? It varied. And that the judge needed to be thrown off the case. And the investigator needed to be thrown off the case. Everybody needs to get thrown off the case, right? Okay. We see it happen in a lot of high-profile cases. And here's the beginning. Claims being made on the alleged victim's lawyer that he's the bad guy. And now there's actually going to be what? A mini hearing on it? I mean, this is so backwards. The alleged victim's lawyer is getting a complaint on him. You know what? I might give it a shred of analysis, but the fact that the feds just searched SPC's homes armed with assault weapons, that kind of corroborates what the victim's lawyer is saying. Oh, there's some new video. Ouch. I do not want to look out my kitchen window and see this. Oh, hey, did you just see that drone? They use drones to precede them to make sure nobody's hiding around a corner with an M16. So what about this, Kayla Brantley? The victim's lawyers are under attack?
I mean, clearly it just looks like it's a distraction. They're trying to attack the lawyer's credibility, trying to go after anything they can to prolong what will eventually likely be a trial, that they're going to throw anything that they can to really distract everyone, to just deny, go for credibility and hope that something sticks and gets him off on a technicality.
And this is very common of psychopaths to use projection and put everything off on everyone else, and gaslighting. Look at how the victim's really not credible, and they're everything, everyone. That's what they're good at, is blaming, to defer looking at their own client.
Yes, and yes. Bernarda Villalona, and I want to hear from you and from Brett Brown from SAS. Bernarda, I mean, any good prosecutor has been threatened with getting thrown off the case, taken off the case, prosecutorial misconduct, blah, 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 blah. I mean, if you've tried cases, they're going to come after you because they're between a rock and a hard spot, and they'll do anything. They'll even say their own lawyer who sweat blood, sweat, and tears for them. They'll say she is ineffective because there's nowhere else to go. So I'm not surprised at all the victims' lawyers are being attacked.
I'm not surprised at the victim's lawyer being attacked. However, Nancy, let's be clear. In this case, who gave Diddy and his attorneys the attack? It's a federal district court judge. This is Judge Denise Colt, who plainly said that she has great concern and pause in this attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, because he has filed in at least 5 different federal cases, some cases that have insufficiencies, and that supposedly, she said, that Blackburn has a history of bringing these cases for social publicity, to get a money grab. So that's why a federal district court judge, we're talking about a judge here, is the one who made the complaint to the bar committee, to the bar association. So in terms of, normally you hear about attorneys being attacked, judges being attacked, but when you have a judge saying this about an attorney, I think we have to look at it even more clearly and give it some more weight. And remember, this is also the same district court judge in the same district where these lawsuits have been filed.
I want to be clear that the order the judge has filed against the alleged victim's lawyer Blackburn, was about an entirely separate case. It's just bubbled back up into the media consciousness because that lawyer Blackburn is also representing some of Diddy's alleged victims. Now, Judge Coates' ruling happened as it relates to a case about a year ago, a legal malpractice lawsuit that Blackburn filed last year. And he was referred to a grievance committee then for the Southern District of New York. But now, Bernarda, everybody's talking about it because he's also representing SPC's alleged victims.
Yes, Tyrone Blackburn, who has huge credibility issues in that Southern District, in that federal district courthouse, where he's now filed these 2 lawsuits having to deal with Sean Puffy Combs. It's a big issue. If he's really looking to do what's in the best interest of his clients, of the victims, of the complainants, he should step aside.
In every one of us, there's a poor person. There's also a middle-class person, and a middle-class
side and allow somebody else to represent them because he has huge ability issues. And when we're talking about the Southern District in that courthouse, attorneys talk, judges talk, and his credibility is on the line. You're talking about this order that's been placed a year before anything came out having to deal with Puffy. And here we have him at the center stage with these 2 lawsuits having to deal with Sean Puffy Combs. So in terms of his credibility,
you know what, Bernarda
we're shot.
Villalona? You can find Bernarda at villalonalaw.com. Bernarda, I don't know that I agree with everything that you said, but I can tell you this much. If these cases go in front of a jury, you think the jury's going to hear from Attorney Blackburn? No, they're not. It's the alleged victim's credibility that matters, not the lawyers. If the victims are telling the truth, bam, the jury's not going to hear about a grievance filed in another case against the lawyer. But
yes,
we can go round and round about that all day, but I want you to look at something else. In the last days, new video has emerged, new footage of the searches of Combs's home, and we're learning a lot. Look, you're seeing armed Homeland Security investigators searching with drones, with weapons pulled, automatic weapons, inside Combs's home. Barry Golden, formerly with the U.S. Marshal Service, what about it? Let's see the video, Liz.
They did exactly what they were supposed to. That is standard operating procedure. You go in heavy, you go in armed with body armor ready. They brought in the armored vehicles just in case. You don't want to pull up in front of a residence and all of a sudden somebody walks out and starts shooting at you. So law enforcement is taking a safety approach. They go in heavy, command and control. There have been allegations of excessive force. I didn't see an excessive force there. The sons were brought out. They were searched. Their hands were put behind their head. Okay. You even saw the agents just put their hands on one of the sons' head and walk them backwards. And then, yes, they were handcuffed outside just so everybody is safe. Nobody does any stupid movements. Nobody reaches for anything. That is standard operating procedure for law enforcement. I've done that so many times, I can't even tell you how many times. That is done by the FBI, HSI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and DEA. That's what they do. I didn't see any allegation of excessive force. They did it by the book. Okay. And yes, they use drones because when you have allegations of guns in there, let's put somebody that a non-human in there to give us eyes on the inside of that property. Now we know what we're going into. Okay. And it's clear and it's safe. And now law enforcement moves in there, command and control that home. And now you can search the entire house without any problems.
Yeah, the last thing I want is another agent shot dead, just affecting a search. Liz, one last time, can I look at that? The video has just been released, apparently released by Combs's ex, to show, quote, excessive force and militaristic efforts used by the Homeland Security investigators, but it's apparently had the exact opposite effect.
Since the raids on Sean Combs' LA and Miami homes, rapper 50 Cent has continuously ridiculed Combs on social media. The artists have been clashing for nearly 20 years, beginning with 50 Cent's belief Combs knows who killed Notorious B.I.G.
Between various rap artists is an ongoing feud erupting in violence. As a matter of fact, Tequila Brantley joining us from dailymail.com. Suge Knight warning Combs his, quote, life is in danger during a prison call. Apparently, Suge Knight, via the prison phone, actually does a podcast from behind bars. And
when you hear something from in jail about the streets, is real.
In that,
I
warns
work like
Sean Puffy
when you
Combs,
hear the jail
aka
first,
Diddy, his life is in danger. What's that about?
Well, Suge Knight is behind bars, and he was targeted and eventually did end up in prison. So this is just a warning to Diddy that they will get you if they want to get you, as they did him. And he's tying all these different cases to him. They're tying the Tupac case to him because he does have a history of guns, of drugs, of beef with these other artists. So it's all culminating now in these cases and these raids. And it's just a warning that he can end up behind bars and his life is in danger.
The Death Row Records founder states, quote, I tell you what, Puffy, your life is in danger because you know the secrets, who's involved in that little secret room you guys are participating in. That was from Collect Call podcast that he actually records over the phone from behind prison bars. Guys, let's stop and remember American hero, firefighter Adam Finseth, just 40, the firefighter paramedic, shot along with Officer Matthew Rouge and Officer Paul Elmstrand. They were responding to a domestic violence call. An Iraqi veteran finished 2 tours, survived by grieving wife, Tara, and 2 children, Liam and Nora. American hero, firefighter Adam Finseth. Thank you to all of our guests, but especially to you for being with us tonight and every night. Nancy Grace signing off. I'll see you tomorrow night, 6 and 9 o'clock sharp Eastern. And until then, good night, friends.
Now subscribe to the channel. Tap
Guys,
in.
thank you for watching Crime Online with Nancy Grace here on YouTube.